My friend, have you ever prayed, fasted, and applied for countless jobs, yet nothing seems to move? You wonder if God has forgotten your name, but listen closely. When God withholds something, it's not rejection, it's redirection. He is not keeping you from a job, He is positioning you for destiny. Sometimes closed doors are divine protection, and unanswered prayers are heaven's strategy to lead you into purpose. Don't mistake delay for denial. God is building something inside you that's far greater than a paycheck. It's preparation for influence, for calling, for impact. Your waiting season is not wasted, it's sacred. When God delays something, our first instinct is often to question His silence. We look at the unanswered prayers, the unopened doors, and the rejections that seem to echo in every direction. And we wonder, why me? But my friend, in the spiritual dimension, delay is not the language of denial. It is the language of development. God's timing does not operate within the framework of our impatience. He works in a rhythm that is divine, intentional, and redemptive. What you perceive as inactivity is, in truth, a season of incubation. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't pull it out every morning to see if it's growing. You water it, protect it, and trust that unseen processes are taking place beneath the surface. The same is true of your destiny. God allows certain seasons to feel dormant because He is cultivating the roots of faith, humility, and endurance that will sustain you when your harvest comes. A tree cannot bear fruit without first growing deep roots, and your waiting season is the place where those roots are being formed. Dr. Cho often said that faith is seeing the invisible and believing the impossible. That means when you are in delay, faith gives you the vision to see that heaven is working even when earth seems still. If God gave you everything you prayed for instantly, you might never develop the capacity to hold it. The delay is divine training. It is building emotional resilience, spiritual maturity, and mental clarity. God delays not to punish but to prepare. Think of Joseph. He received a dream as a young man, a vision of greatness and leadership, yet immediately afterward he was betrayed, enslaved, and imprisoned. From a human perspective, it looked like God had forgotten him. But in reality, each delay was divine alignment. Each detour was developing wisdom, character, and compassion. By the time Joseph stood before Pharaoh, he wasn't just a dreamer, he was a disciplined man molded by the waiting. God's delay was the bridge between his dream and his destiny. In psychology, we understand that waiting tests our ability to delay gratification, a mark of maturity. Spiritually, the same principle applies. Waiting refines the soul. It dismantles ego and impatience, teaching you to depend not on outcomes but on the presence of God. If you cannot find peace in the waiting, you will not sustain peace in the breakthrough. God is not only preparing the blessing for you, He is preparing you for the blessing. Many people pray for open doors, but forget that God first strengthens the one who must walk through them. If the door opened too soon, it could crush you with responsibility you are not yet equipped to carry. God's delay is His mercy, disguised as disappointment. It is heaven's way of saying, you are destined for more than you can currently handle. When He withholds, He is not depriving, He is designing. And this is where faith must become more than a feeling. You must learn to rest in God's sovereignty. Even when your logic rebels, you must learn to say, Lord, I may not see it, but I know you are working. Because when faith matures, patience becomes peace. You no longer strive to make things happen. You align yourself with divine timing, knowing that what belongs to you will never pass you by. So if you are in a season of delay, don't curse it, honor it. Use it to grow, to pray, to strengthen your inner life. The delay is proof that God trusts you with something that requires depth. It is not the end of your journey. It is the sacred beginning of your becoming. And when the appointed time arrives, you will realize the delay was not denial at all. It was the voice of God whispering, wait, I'm building something greater inside you. Sometimes the greatest kindness God shows us is not in the doors He opens, but in the ones He firmly shuts. Yet, because we are conditioned to measure success by movement, we misread divine protection as rejection. We look at a job we didn't get, a promotion that slipped through our hands, or an opportunity that seemed perfect but vanished. And we say, Lord, why did you close that door? But, my friend, when God blocks something, it is rarely because you're unworthy of it. It is because it is unworthy of you. You see, not every open door leads to purpose. Some doors are designed to distract, to drain, or to delay. The enemy is cunning. He doesn't always present destruction in ugly forms. Sometimes he wraps it in the language of opportunity. A job that flatters your ego but empties your spirit. A position that brings visibility but steals your peace. A role that promises income but robs you of intimacy with God. This is why discernment must mature before destiny can manifest. If you cannot distinguish between divine opportunity and human distraction, you will mistake a trap for a blessing. Dr. Cho often taught that the Holy Spirit's role is not only to empower but to guide. That means sometimes the Spirit leads by closing paths that would lead you astray. You might have the qualifications, the skill, even the passion, but God sees what you cannot see. He looks beyond the salary and the title. He looks into the long-term impact on your soul. He knows when a place will suffocate your calling, when an environment will poison your peace, or when a relationship will weaken your faith. So he intervenes, not with thunder and fire, but with silence, with closed doors, with stillness. Think of it like this. A shepherd doesn't let every sheep wander freely because not every meadow is safe. The shepherd blocks certain paths to prevent harm, even if the sheep doesn't understand. Likewise, God sometimes restricts your movement, not because he's limiting you, but because he's protecting you from something you're not yet aware of. What feels like confinement is often divine containment, God keeping you in the right environment until it's safe to step into the next. Psychologically, human beings are drawn to completion. We hate the idea of unfinished stories or unanswered prayers, but spiritually, unfinished seasons are sometimes the very fabric of God's strategy. You may be fixated on a particular job, thinking it's your only route to stability, but God knows that stability without purpose becomes stagnation. He is more interested in shaping your inner world than satisfying your immediate desire. The closed door is his invitation to trust that his plan is wider, deeper, and wiser than your current understanding. Every person who has walked in true purpose can look back and thank God for the opportunities they didn't get. They realize that rejection was divine redirection. The heartbreak was protection. The delay was construction. God is too intentional to allow anything meaningless into your path. What he blocks, he replaces. What he removes, he redeems. So when a door closes, don't rush to force it open. Don't manipulate your way into places God has already sealed off. Stand still long enough to hear his whisper. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not moving forward, but standing firm and saying, Lord, if you closed it, I trust you. Because when God says no, it is never to harm you. It is to reroute you toward what will heal and elevate you. And when the right door finally opens, you'll understand that every closed one was heaven's way of saying that was too small for you. I had something greater all along. When God seems silent, it's easy to assume you've been overlooked. You see others getting promoted, finding work, moving ahead, and something inside you whispers, maybe I've been forgotten. But listen, my friend, God does not forget. His delays are not signs of neglect. They are signs of preparation. When it looks like nothing is happening around you, something profound is happening within. You are not being passed over. You are being prepared. Preparation is heaven's hidden strategy. Before God elevates a person, he strengthens their inner foundation. He molds character before he releases calling. This is because what you carry on the outside must be supported by who you are on the inside. If the inner life is weak, the weight of success can crush you. That's why God invests time in the unseen parts of your life, your motives, your resilience, your humility. He's not withholding your opportunity. He's fortifying your spirit. Dr. Cho often emphasized that true faith is born in the waiting room of God. Faith is not simply believing for something. It's becoming the kind of person who can sustain it when it arrives. Many people desire to be blessed, but few are ready to be stewards of blessing. The waiting season exposes what's still fragile in you, your tendency to doubt, your fear of loss, your hunger for control, and in exposing it, God gives you a chance to be transformed. Think of David. He was anointed king as a shepherd boy, yet he didn't ascend to the throne immediately. There were years of isolation, persecution, and testing. But those years were not wasted. They were his classroom. God was teaching him how to lead through pain, how to depend on the Spirit, how to respond to betrayal with grace. Every field he tended, every cave he hid in was preparation for the crown he would one day wear. If he had received the throne prematurely, he might have ruled from insecurity instead of wisdom. There is a deep psychological truth here. Human beings grow through tension, not ease. Growth occurs when comfort is disrupted, when desire is delayed. The mind stretches, the spirit deepens, and faith matures when you learn to find peace without progress. It's easy to have faith when doors open. Real faith is forged when every door remains closed and you still believe God is working behind them. God's preparation often feels like contradiction. You pray for increase and He allows decrease. You ask for speed and He slows you down. You seek recognition and He hides you. Yet each of these contradictions has purpose. He's purifying your motives. He's teaching you that identity is not rooted in what you do, but in who you are there, in Him. Because when your value no longer depends on visible success, you become unshakable, ready for any platform, any assignment, any trial. In our impatience, we often want arrival without transformation. We want to be there without being not ready. But God is too loving to let that happen. He knows the weight of destiny, and He will not let you walk into it underdeveloped. The waiting season, then, is not punishment. It's promotion in progress. Each day of silence, each unanswered prayer, each disappointment is adding layers of spiritual strength to your character. And when the time finally comes, when the opportunity opens and your name is called, you'll realize that the waiting wasn't wasted at all. It was the reason you're ready now. You'll look back and see that the very seasons you resented were the seasons that equipped you for everything you prayed for. Because in God's kingdom, being prepared is far greater than being preferred. And when your preparation is complete, no one and nothing can take your place. There comes a point in every believer's journey when God begins to shift the focus from that employment to assignment. A job may meet your needs, but a calling meets God's purpose. A job pays your bills, but your calling pays eternity. This is where many people get frustrated because they confuse occupation with the vocation. The occupation, what you do to survive, the vocation, the divine calling, is what you were born to and become. God will often interrupt the comfort of a job to awaken the deeper purpose that has been lying dormant within you. When you've built your life around the pursuit of security, the loss of a job can feel like the end of stability. But in the realm of faith, that loss can also be the beginning of revelation. Sometimes God will strip away what's predictable to reveal what's possible. You see, God's ultimate goal is not to make you comfortable. It's to make you complete, and completeness only comes when you begin to function in alignment with the reason you were created. Dr. Cho often said that every person has a divine assignment. Something heaven has designed uniquely for them to fulfill. No one else can do it in your place. That's why certain doors will not open for you, even though they seem perfect on paper. You might have the right experience, the right connections, and still nothing happens. Why? Because God is not preparing you for just a paycheck. He is preparing you for purpose. You cannot fit divine purpose into a human system. You can only flow into it. When Moses fled Egypt, he thought he had lost everything. His influence, his position, his identity. For 40 years, he lived as a shepherd in the wilderness, far from the prestige of Pharaoh's court. But what looked like a detour was actually divine development. God wasn't sending him backward. He was preparing him for the assignment ahead, to lead a nation. The man who once managed flocks would one day manage millions. The desert that humbled him became the classroom that qualified him. Likewise, your current delay may not be punishment. It may be preparation for a greater influence you cannot yet imagine. From a psychological perspective, human beings crave structure. We seek predictable patterns because they make us feel safe. But God's ways are not predictable. He dismantles your sense of control so that your trust shifts from systems to spirit. When you no longer find identity in a title, a salary, or a routine, you begin to discover who you truly are. That's the place where your calling begins to speak. It often whispers first, not shouts. A restlessness, a burden, a vision that keeps returning to your heart. And when it does, you must pay attention, for that is how God invites you into your true work. In that sacred moment, the question changes. You stop asking, what job should I pursue? And start asking, what purpose is God trying to express through me? When you align with that question, everything shifts. Work becomes worship. Effort becomes expression. And even in seasons of uncertainty, peace returns, because you know you are moving in divine rhythm. God may have closed certain professional doors because they would have locked you to a smaller version of yourself. He may have withheld a position because he was trying to position you for something eternal. The assignment he has for you is not about career advancement, it's about kingdom advancement. And once that revelation takes root, you stop striving for recognition and start living for revelation. So, if you're in a place where you feel stripped of titles, positions, or opportunities, don't see it as loss. See it as liberation. God is not taking something from you. He's calling something out of you. You are being drawn away from employment and summoned into destiny. Because when you finally embrace your calling, you'll realize the job was never your source. God was, and His purpose is the only work that never runs out of reward. Faith at its core is not proven in moments of triumph, but in the quiet corridors of waiting. It is easy to believe when life aligns with your prayers, when doors open quickly and results arrive on schedule. But true faith, refined faith, is born when heaven seems silent, when your prayers echo back unanswered, when you have done all you know to do and still nothing changes. This is the kind of faith that matures in stillness. It is faith without evidence, belief without proof, trust without sight. Dr. Cho often taught that immature faith demands instant results, but mature faith rests in divine timing. God doesn't measure faith by how loudly we proclaim it. He measures it by how quietly we sustain it. You see, waiting is not a passive act. It's an active discipline. It requires spiritual strength to remain calm when your emotions want to panic. It takes endurance to keep worshiping when the outcome is uncertain. It demands wisdom to recognize that delay does not equal distance, and silence does not mean absence. In waiting, God is developing the inner architecture of faith. The purpose of delay is not to discourage you, but to deepen you. A faith that always gets what it wants becomes shallow. A faith that must endure through silence becomes strong. This is why God sometimes allows us to walk through the dark valleys, not to destroy us, but to strengthen the spiritual muscles that can only form under pressure. Faith grows best in the soil of uncertainty. There's a psychological truth that complements this spiritual principle. Human beings crave control, because control gives the illusion of safety. When we can predict, we feel secure, but faith dismantles that illusion. It asks us to surrender our need for control and to live in divine trust. That surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. Because the moment you let go of control, you make space for God to move in ways beyond your calculation. Abraham waited decades for a promise. Sarah laughed at the impossibility of it. Yet, through that waiting, they learned something that comfort could never teach. That the integrity of God's word is not bound by the limits of human time. When the promise finally manifested, it carried more than a son. It carried the testimony of endurance. Likewise, your waiting season is not empty. It is gathering weight, meaning, and maturity. The longer you wait in faith, the more powerful your testimony becomes. Many people quit in the middle because they misunderstand the nature of faith. They think faith is about forcing God's hand. No, faith is about aligning your heart with His will, even when His plan doesn't make sense. Faith says, I trust you even if you don't move today. That kind of trust transforms the soul. It liberates you from anxiety and ushers you into peace, because you stop living by outcomes and start living by obedience. And this is the mystery. When faith matures, peace replaces striving. You no longer rush ahead of God. You no longer measure His goodness by your timeline. You begin to realize that the process is part of the promise. Waiting becomes holy. The silence becomes sacred. You start to see that the same God who gave the promise is shaping you into the kind of person who can carry it with grace. So, if you are in that season right now, still waiting, still believing, don't lose heart. The waiting is not punishment, it's purification. God is maturing your faith, deepening your roots, and preparing your soul for what's coming. Because when faith has finished its work, you won't just receive what you prayed for. You'll become the kind of person who can never lose it. When the right door opens, there is no striving, no confusion, no forcing your way through. The peace of God becomes the confirmation that this time it is Him. You see, when a person has walked through seasons of delay, disappointment, and divine silence, something powerful happens. They develop spiritual discernment. They stop chasing every opportunity that looks good and start waiting for the one that feels ordained. This is the wisdom that only waiting can teach. God allows you to face closed doors so that when He finally opens the right one, you recognize it, not by sight, but by spirit. In life, we often try to push our way into places we were never meant to be. We write extra emails, make extra calls, and attempt to manufacture what only God can orchestrate. But divine openings do not require manipulation, they require maturity. The door God opens is one that no human effort could have achieved, and no human power can shut. That's why when the opportunity finally arrives, it comes wrapped in peace, not pressure. It fits your spirit as naturally as breath fills your lungs. Dr. Cho used to say that when you are walking in God's will, you move in divine flow. There is a rhythm, a grace, a supernatural ease. It doesn't mean there won't be effort, but it means your effort will be fruitful. When God opens the door, favor meets preparation and timing meets readiness. Suddenly, what seemed impossible becomes inevitable. What used to feel like striving now feels like alignment. You realize that God's plan was never late. It was precisely on time. From a psychological point of view, this shift is deeply transformative. The human mind, shaped by urgency and fear of scarcity, believes that if we don't act quickly, opportunities will disappear. But divine timing teaches you abundance, that what is yours will not be lost. You stop operating from desperation and begin to operate from trust. This internal shift brings emotional stability because your confidence is no longer rooted in outcomes but in God's sovereignty. The waiting season teaches you to stop chasing and start attracting, not through manipulation but through alignment. When the right door opens, it will not only elevate you, it will fit the person you have become. Remember, if the door had opened earlier, it might have destroyed you. But now, after being shaped by delay, refined by rejection, and matured by faith, you carry the wisdom to handle what once would have overwhelmed you. God's timing is not just about events aligning, it's about you. Aligning with the vision He placed inside you. Joseph didn't have to force his way into Pharaoh's palace. One day, the same prison that confined him became the platform for his calling. When the appointed time arrived, God didn't just open a door, He opened a throne. And that is how divine openings work. They don't come as opportunities to prove your worth. They come as confirmations of who you've already become. So when God opens the door, step through it with humility, not haste. Don't forget the lessons the waiting taught you. Every tear, every no, every delay was not wasted. It was constructing the spiritual strength you now carry. The very seasons that broke you are the ones that built you for this moment. And when the world sees the door finally open, they will call it favor, but you will know it was information. So hold on to this truth. No human can close what God Himself has ordained to open. His timing is flawless, His methods are precise, and His promises are secure. Because when God opens the door, it won't just change your circumstances, it will reveal that every closed one was a part of His perfect plan for your destiny.